The Trump administration is building an army of propagandists and press briefings. You have to see this. But first, we need to take a second to talk about Terry Moran's interview with Trump on ABC News. They got on the topic of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man who was wrongfully deported. And this was one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen.
He wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute over that.
Wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
Yeah, that was photoshopped. So let me
That was photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that.
And he just kept going. Moran tried to give him an out. He tried to pivot to Ukraine.
Well, here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't
Take a look
there,
at the
but
photograph.
they're there now, right?
No,
but they're there
in
now.
your picture.
Terry.
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
Well, we'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you
sir.
just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested.
But Trump continued to double and triple down. I think we all understood what was happening when we saw that picture. Somebody just added MS-13 over the tattoos. While they claim those tattoos symbolize MS-13, that's debated. But it wasn't a debate for Trump. He thought that was real. And you see in that conversation, he's taking shots at Moran. He's trying to insult him and denigrate him. Because what Trump wants is a compliant press. That's why Carolyn Levitt is hosting press briefings with right-wing influencers in the White House. Let's start with this clip where someone asks Caroline Levitt a question that seems to insinuate that Biden is responsible for rising suicide rates.
The White House is crawling with kids. You have a young, beautiful baby boy. There are babies everywhere. There's so many young folks on staff who have kids. But the last 4 years under Joe Biden, parents were really stressed and ravaged. They had to take on 2 or 3 extra jobs. Depression rates were up. Suicide rates were up. You're a very high-profile young mother who seems to juggle and balance it all beautifully. What advice do you have to young parents out there who are starting their careers, having kids, building families, and trying to find that balance so desperately?
Yeah. I mean, that's just patently ludicrous on its face. If Donald Trump and Republicans are so pro-family, so pro-baby, why do they fight tooth and nail to block the extension of the child tax credit? That is something that cut the child poverty rate in half, and Republicans all worked to end it. And they have filled this room with sycophant right-wing influencers. These people aren't reporters. They aren't held to any sort of journalistic standard. They're there to kiss up to the Trump administration. Look no further than this comment.
Great to see you as well. Great job this morning, and as always, you're really crushing it.
Yeah, you're really crushing it. Imagine the reaction if somebody from the New York Times or Washington Post said that to, say, Karine Jean-Pierre. They would have a meltdown. But no, now that their party's in power, they want to do propaganda. And it wasn't just flattery. One of them explicitly asked for instructions. Take a look.
I'm kind of the nerd when it comes to reporting. I'm not the headline news girl. I'm the nuts and bolts. I'm the policy type nerd. So what direction do you advise kind of me to go into, like the White House files that y'all send out every single day? Because that's what people are used to when they want to ask me questions. They want to know kind of like the nuts and bolts of everything.
Oh, yes, please. What story should I write and how do you want it written? It's so ridiculous. But it didn't stop there. They invited a prominent right-wing conspiracy theorist.
I wanted to reference the election integrity. A lot of people in America are questioning if there's any possibility that we could see further investigations for anyone that could have violated our election integrity rights. And more importantly, so is there any possibility for names such as Barack Hussein Obama, Hillary Rodham Clinton to ever just possibly get investigated for any of these, questions from the American people, any of the wrongdoings they might have done?
So why are they doing this? Well, they know the right has built a massive media ecosystem, and we need to acknowledge that the left doesn't have something comparable. We are trying to build that here, so if you can like and subscribe, that'd be great, but there's a lot of work to be done. So the Trump administration is smart to employ these types of people to do their bidding, but ultimately they're misleading people. They're misleading people because they don't want you to see the reality, and you saw that this week with the GDP numbers. The economy shrunk. Trump's economy. For the first time in 3 years, it is a direct consequence of his tariff policies. And instead of just acknowledging that this is bad and there's work to be done, Trump sent Peter Navarro, his tariff advisor, over to CNBC to say, actually, they wanted this. This is right where they want to be.
I gotta say just one thing about today's news. That's the best negative print I have ever seen in my life. And the markets need to look beneath the surface of that. We had a 22% increase in domestic investment. That is off the charts when you strip out inventories and the negative effects of the surge in imports because of the tariffs.
Give me a break. But one of the most ridiculous and absurd lies came from his Attorney General, Pam Bondi. When talking about the amount of fentanyl they allegedly seized at the border, this is what she had to say.
3,400 kilos of fentanyl since you've been your last 100 days, which saved, are you ready for this, media? 258 million lives. Kids are dying every day because they're taking this junk laced with something else. They don't know what they're taking. They think they're buying a Tylenol or an Adderall and a Xanax, and it's laced with fentanyl, and they're dropping dead, and no longer because of you, what you've done.
258 million lives were saved as a result of this fentanyl seizure. Drugs are bad, but I don't think that those numbers add up. 258 million people are alive now, but wouldn't otherwise be? Am I dead? In right-wing circles, they are going to portray that as absolute truth, but we can see through it. That's why what the Trump administration is doing with these briefings is really dangerous, because it gives people a totally warped perspective of reality. That's why it is so important for the left to build something up as a counterbalance to the right-wing propaganda machine. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends. Thank you for watching.